We need a volume button, Mike.
We'll call the meeting to order. Please join me in Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Donna, will you please take roll call?
Just a second. Jamie.
Present.
Clark.
On his way.
John.
Present.
Jason.
Here.
Alicia. Here. And Donna, I'm here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right now, I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
A motion by Jamie. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Alicia to approve the agenda. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Announcements. The next regular school board meeting will be on Monday, January 9th, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the GSL High School Community Room, 443-444. Acknowledgements. Do we have any acknowledgements at this time?
I just want to send out our sympathies to the family of Don Groutman. He passed away recently, and Don was a former school board member here at Glencoe School District, and so our sympathies go out to their families.
That would be Don Grunhagen.
Don Grunhagen. Not Groutman. Oh, I'm sorry. Grunhagen.
You're hanging.
Thank you.
Any other acknowledgements? Hearing none, any public input relating to the agenda? Second call for public input relating to the agenda. And third call. Hearing none, we'll move on to reports and presentations. Mr. Schwartz, are you ready to go?
Ready to go. Okay, what I want to do is quickly go over the things that we have hosted this fall and this winter already. The first thing that we did is we had a JV conference tennis that we were able to host. We are one of the few teams, and actually the only team, that has 12 courts side by side. We hosted over 150 tennis players out here this fall. We also hosted the Wright County Conference Jamboree. That's a pre-meet at the beginning of the year for the conference championship. We hosted the Katie Delwich Run, the Jamboree, which was our largest ever. We had 13 teams that attended that. We hosted the Wright County West Division Cross Country Championships, which had 8 teams attending. There were over 240 runners here. And what I want to comment on that is it becomes very difficult when we host that here. We were able to park all the buses in the new parking lot over there and created a lot less chaos out here in the parking lot and made it a lot safer for everyone. And we had many compliments that the kids knew where the buses were at, and it just made it a much safer event for us. So really appreciate the new parking lot. We also host the Don Hall the first weekend here in December. We had 8 teams attending that, over 184 wrestlers. It was a very good event for us. Our dance team held the Family and Friends Showcase. Bertina Shaw put that together. We also had our Parents' Night and our Senior Night on that night. Very thankful for the coaches for doing that. It's another day asked of them to commit themselves to, and it was a great experience. On that night, too, also they explained the scoring. A lot of people don't know how the scoring works for dance, and our coaches did that for them. This past weekend, we just held the GSL Booster Club Boys Basketball Tournament. We had 4 varsity teams, 4 JV teams. Went really well. This weekend, again, we're hosting the GSL Booster Team Wrestling Tournament, which we have 8 teams attending. If you look on the board over here, just want to explain to you kind of what's going on. And this is the GSL Boosters are the ones that are, doing most of the cost for this, actually all of it up to this point. We're working on our baseball and softball complex. What we're doing currently right now is on the varsity field A13. We have dugouts on that field that we're able to put in. We do not have dugouts on the JV, softball, the baseball field, and the other baseball field. Kenny Polifka came out and he did the initial work for us right now as far as getting the dugouts ready. We also are in the process of putting a shelter here in the middle. It's just a shade shelter, and to get out of the rain, it's a nice little thing. We have the foundation set for that right now, what he did this fall. We also redid the gate on the entrance right now. He was able to take the post out, create a new entrance that we can get bigger machinery in there and do what we need to do moving forward. All that cost is being covered by the Booster Club at this time. And that is basically what is being done out here. Many of you don't know we have installed the batting cages out there. The coaches did all the work of putting those up. Kenny did the initial work of the poles and the groundwork and the footings and that, but it is becoming a really nice, usable complex out there. This year, in the spring, we are moving baseball out of Plato for the 7th and 8th grade. There is going to be 8th grade on this field and 7th grade here. This will be the first year in probably 20 years that we've had baseball back here on our own facility. We'll reduce the amount of busing that we need as far as moving kids to another field, and makes it a lot safer. The next thing that I would like to update you on is our grading from this fall moving into this winter. We have 126 students out for activities in grades 9 through 12. We have 4 students in those grades who are ineligible currently. It's 97% of our students are eligible. In the junior high, we have 86 students out for activities. We have 3 students that are ineligible, which again is a 97% eligibility rate. Overall, we have, if you can, pretty easy to figure out the numbers, 97% of our students are eligible at this time. Our all-conference academic teams were announced. In order to be an all-conference academic student, you need to have lettered in a varsity activity and be in grades 9 through 12. You have to have a GPA of 3.7 for Try 1, and we had 35 Panthers achieve this. The next thing that I wanted to share with you quickly is we've had some questions about the live streaming and things that are going on. Right now, Mr. Sanju and myself are looking into a new company as far as live streaming our events. We're looking into NFHS. I've had some contact with them as far as the possibility of then they would charge a fee for them to use it. We're just in the initial phases right now. We're looking at how fast they can get it done and what the cost is to us. At this time, there would be no cost to the district to have it done. The cost of streaming the games is put on the viewers at that time if they choose to purchase it. I've done it, for example, when our kids went to Maple River. I paid for the streaming fee, and I think it was $10 and so many cents for, the month of December. The last thing that I want to do is on your consent agenda. Mr. Chimperly has decided to resign as our football coach, and I would like to thank him personally for the time that he's given to our district as a football coach. Not many people are involved in a district for 29 years, and I just want to thank him for all the time and service that he's given to our district. At this time, are there any questions for me?
You said that you're going to talk about talk to someone about the live streaming. So will that be for all of the sporting events and, home and away, or?
Very good question. It is only for home events, obviously, that you're able to stream it, because we'd have a camera in the black gym and then one at the football stadium. So we'd be able to do soccer and football out there. And what we've tried to do is anytime that we stream something, instead of having it in the purple gym, we try to move it to the black gym so that we're able to do that at the varsity level.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dean. Moving on, in our reports, we have FFA.
Michelle said you can log in on your Google Drive that one.
Give us a countdown.
Say, as we wait, I would just be able to give a couple of things to the board for reminders. January 12th and 13th is our MSBA conference. If you guys do plan on attending that, let Tricia know on that one. That's obviously coming up here in a short month or so. Again, and we don't know if we're going to have our unified there now because of some conflicts with their event that they're doing. They're going skiing. So they're still trying to work. So they're potentially, if it's not going to happen this year, it'll happen next year. But at the same time, we're still looking at trying to find some students that will be coming with us on that day. And then, of course, any of you guys that would be able to come. Great opportunity. And like I said before, Dr. Brown will be the speaker, who was the guy that was here at the beginning of the school year, who was very popular. So thank you.
So we want to thank you.
Yep.
We want to thank you guys for letting us come today to present to you about our national convention trip we just had. And my name's Emma. I'm in 10th grade, and something I took from the national convention is I inspired to open up to new people I've never met before.
My name is Anna Seaver, and I'm also in 10th grade, and one thing I took from the trip was just seeing how many cool things people are doing in FFA and just learning how I can apply that to my life.
My name's Brianna. I'm in 11th grade, and some things that I got, I was inspired for new SAE projects like agricultural education.
My name's Bailey Brelia, and I'm in 10th grade as well. And one thing that I took from the National Convention experience was I really got pushed into wanting to pursue either a career in agriculture or nursing a lot more than I did before I went on the trip.
I'm Braxton Rose. I'm a senior. One thing I took away from or benefited from National Convention since my second year going is pursuing an education or a career in agriculture or ag systems technology and precision.
I'm Brooklyn Casella. I'm in 11th grade, and something I took from the convention is I was able to grow a lot closer to the other chapter members that went and some other people that we met from other chapters in Minnesota. And not all of our members that attended were able to be with us here tonight, but on this picture, these are all of our members that did get to attend with us.
So who all went? We had 15 members from GSL and 4 adults go. So as you can see, all the 15 members are pictured there. And the 4 adults were Paskey, Lamont, and Mr. and Mrs. Betcher. But in total, over 68,000 total FFA members were there. And so we had people from literally all over the country, and it was so cool to see us all just gather for the same reason.
We had a competitor. It was Lise Betcher. She competed in employment skills and was top 4 in the nation for her proficiency. We had 2 people receive their American degrees, Haley Kirchhoff and Emily Ward. An American degree is the highest level that you can go in FFA.
We had a lot of different opportunities when we went down to Indianapolis, but some of them are workshops. We got to go to session. We got to meet tons of people, college fairs, career fairs. We went on a tour to the Amish farms on our way down there. We got to do a radio interview with some people from Minnesota, and we also did some networking as well. A quote from Emma is, "We had the opportunity to attend workshops where we learned how to communicate and connect to create a stronger agriculture community." So overall, we had a really fun experience, and we all learned a lot, and I think we all took a ton away from this experience.
During session, we were awarded 3 out of 3 stars, which is the highest award in our chapter, and we were top 6. We were the 6th chapter out of our state. During the career fair, you can walk around, see the different booths. Like Case IH, I got to see the blacked out Magnum, and meet Welker, and there's just a ton of different careers that you can benefit from. And that's how I got the idea to pursue a career in ASD.
We got to go to the college fairs. We got to meet representatives from colleges all around the country. And quote from Brianna, she met with colleges that she wouldn't have considered before, and she learned more about them. Since then, she's been exploring these options more. On the way down there, like Bailey said, we got to go tour an Amish farm, and they cooked us a meal, and we also got to tour their wood shop. It was just a cool experience to see how they run it without electricity. Like Bailey said before, we did some networking. So a quote from Bailey, "At the Career Expo, we got to meet with Purina. We got to learn about proper nutrition for our animals and the importance of advocating for our animals' nutrition." So we got to meet with a bunch of different networking stations or people down there. And we also had the opportunity to do some radio interviews. The people that interviewed us were actually from Minnesota. They were from New Ulm. So that was pretty cool. A quote from Brooklyn. "It was an awesome experience to connect with people in our community, and an awesome experience I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. It was really cool that we got to get an interview from somebody back home in Minnesota, so I thought that was really cool." Is there any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll move on to administrator and committee reports. Business Manager Sander.
I have nothing else that I'm going to report on tonight, so except for the truth and taxation, so you can wait and hear me at 6 o'clock.
All right. Principal reports. Mr. Butler, are you ready to go?
Good evening, Jason, and thank you. I'll highlight some of the items on our elementary report and would welcome your questions throughout and at the end, of course. I want to highlight our extended day programs. First, Lincoln Learners near the top, and then Panthers After School at Lakeside. Have a lot of gratitude to the staff who are working these two programs. Just want to point out some really cool enrichment opportunities that we're doing with the older kids at Lakeside, in addition to academics, theater, improv, and then circuits and electricity. I'll go 3/4 of the way down under the solution focus teams. That's the team that coordinates and plans interventions, gives students and teachers support. We typically had met twice a month at each building. We're seeing a greater number of kids coming to school with outside reports, counseling, psychological reports. So we're expanding those meetings and then having one meeting for each grade level. So for example, at Lincoln, we'll meet 3 times a month, one focused on each grade level. And again, that's a team that kids eventually might flow into special education there. So they work hand in hand with our special education assessment team. Elementary science met this morning. Really good discussion with grade level reps K through 6, and teachers are working on a document to fill in a needs analysis. What's working well, what improvements we'd like to see in terms of curriculum scheduling, etc. I'll go to the back. There's nothing Nothing new on title. You see the budget numbers. I like to keep those on there because when we do get numbers from the state, probably Michelle will be in the early summer. Michelle said that's probably accurate. Then we can have a nice comparison there to see our title budget. Special education. We've been working just a little bit on planning and preparation for extended school year. That's something that we would bring to the board in May, but just we're working behind the scenes with teachers because there is quite a bit of documentation and paperwork that teachers will need to complete to see if kids qualify for ESY. You can look at all the events, the school community partnership, looking farther out. We can see we have an author visit at Lincoln and Lakeside, parent and teacher conferences in February, and had a discussion with Tricia this morning about kindergarten roundup and registration. You can see the date there of March 9th. I do want to acknowledge, you see on the bottom there, Teresa Keister and Heather Pierce. They stayed late on a day and built a planetarium for our kids. And we're going to use that to recognize kids later this month. Kids who were recognized at our all-school celebrations earlier in the fall. So thanks to Teresa and Heather. And then finally, Sarah Lipke, leading the Lakeside Student Council, coordinating the toy pickup today, which went fairly smoothly. And those toys are on the way to needy kids. So that's what I have. What questions do you have for me?
I have a quick curriculum question. Can you refresh our memory what the cycle is right now as far as what curriculum purchase will be coming up next? Or
we're working on science
right now? Okay.
Yes.
And so we've done the purchasing and so forth for the language arts, right? And the year before that was math. So some big ones kind of out of the way, but science possibly could be another big purchase.
Correct.
Social studies as well? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Jamie.
Bill, as far as you know, are the weather packets all sent home with the elementary kids or elementary teachers?
Yes.
Okay, just in case.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
All right,
everyone.
hearing no other questions, Principal Foss.
Good evening. I want to talk about a couple of things that Mr. Sanju brought up already, and I apologize. The ski trip that he mentioned earlier is my own doing. Our PBIS committee has looked at putting together and are putting together a 7-12 incentive trip for students here. And how this all started was we wanted to come up with something once a term or once a trimester, which won't happen now because we're in Tri-2, but we wanted to do something during the winter and then again here in the spring, just as an incentive for our students, kind of a thank you for doing the expected things that we want from them here at school, whether it be behaviorally or academically, and giving them a day. And what we're doing here is on January 11th, we're going to take our 7th through 9th graders to Powder Ridge for skiing or snowboarding, and then January 12th, we're going to take our students in grades 10 through 12 as well. One of the conflicts that comes from that with the School Board Association meeting is we want to have our unified students be a part of that on both days to help support our students with special needs and be partners with them as they would be here during our unified Phi-Ed class at school to kind of help them with the skiing, the snowboarding, or what they choose to do for that day. Some of the things, and I'd sent information out to families that they need to accomplish before that is we're looking at attendance. They can't have unexcused absences. They can't have tardies. We are looking at behavior referrals to offices, and we're also looking at any detentions that they may have to serve. And detentions at the 7-12 level are related to both attendance and behavior. Truly, what we're looking at is to have every kid attend this trip. We've sent out Google Forms to all of our students, and right now we're planning on having about 580 students attend this over the 2 days, which is a huge amount of students wanting to take part of this. I've heard from many students saying they've never had the opportunity to ski or snowboard before, so they're pretty excited about that. So that is what we have planned coming up for January 11th and 12th. We will have a plan for those students who choose to stay back or students who have not earned the privilege to go on that trip. We will have a plan for them while they're at school for those 2 days. Talking kind of in the same vein as PBIS, we still are doing our Student Spotlight Awards once a month. Matter of fact, we just did them last week, Monday for our junior high students during their win time, and then we did last Wednesday for our senior high students in the morning, where we had a breakfast with our students and their parents, as well as the staff who have nominated them. One of the things that I wanted to talk to the board about, and this is an again thing, I talked about it last year, but I want to bring it up today as well. We are continuing to pursue our Check and Connect mentorship program at the 712 setting. We piloted this last year on a very small scale. We piloted it last year with 2 staff members and 2 students. And basically what it is we find students who are referred to office staff, whether it be through self-reporting of the student, via student engagement surveys, teacher referrals of students who may be struggling, or parent concerns of a parent reaching out and saying, hey, my child's really struggling at school, could you help them somehow? And sometimes parents don't know what that looks like, and this is where our Check and Connect mentorship program comes in. And what that is it partners students with a mentor staff member here at school. And it doesn't necessarily have to be academic support. It can just be support for a student who needs somebody to talk to or have a trusted figure here at school. Currently, we're targeting 16 students to be paired with staff members. Phone calls have gone home to parents to make sure that they are accepting of this and that the students are accepting of it as well. In this first full year of implementation, we're not wanting our mentors to take on more than they can handle. So we have 1 student per 1 mentor. Our goal is moving forward that our mentors could take 2 or maybe 3 students to kind of open this up to more individuals. But right now we're looking at 1 staff member mentor with 1 student through our Check and Connect mentorship program. Very quickly, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but our solution focus team and our student assistance team still meets. These are our committees where we talk about interventions that may help our students both academically and behaviorally in the classroom. It is also the committees that meet if there's any SPED referral that needs to take place and identifying students with special education needs, or 504 creation and implementation based on any medical notes we receive for students at our level. I know it's hard or crazy to think this, but we have began discussions about our 23-24 registration process. So we are planning to get into classrooms with our counselors here in the middle of January to talk about our registration guide and to talk about the courses and what students can sign up for. One of the ideas that came up through a parent advisory meeting that I had this fall, and I'll talk about our parent advisory group here in a second as well, was this idea of parents want to know what their kids are signing up for. And in the past, what we've done at GSL is we've had students fill out what's called a 4-year plan on our Infinite Campus system. And logistically, it creates a lot of issues. So that does allow parents to see what they've signed up for. But if a student fills out their 4-year plan on Infinite Campus as a 9th grader, those courses stay in that Infinite Campus system all the way through until they graduate. So if a student signs up as a 9th grader, and they may have signed up for, I'm going to make up a class, basket weaving that we offered when they were a 9th grader, and now they're a senior, that basket weaving course is still in there. And Infinite Campus recognizes that as a course that they should be taking, even though that may not be a course that we offer anymore. So one of the things that we came up with at the office level was Whitney Peters, our junior high counselor, created a Google Sheet that all students will be filling out, and this is their 4-year plan. So students fill this 4-year plan out. If they're in 10th or 11th grade, it won't be 4 years for them anymore because they don't have 4 years left. But they fill this plan out, and when it's done, they'll share that with their parent, and they'll also share it with their RAP advisor so that we can make sure that all of these 4-year plans have been filled out and they all have been shared with parents so that they can view it if they want to. That was something that was brought up at a parent advisory meeting of parents want to know what their kids are signing up for. Not so much that they can adjust it, but just be aware of what their kids are taking. Another thing that came from the parent advisory meeting, which corresponds with our registration process, is
parents have said, I think a lot of times our students don't know what we offer. And we do have a registration guide which gives them, a small paragraph that explains a course. And based on that paragraph, they're going to sign up for that course that lasts for at least a trimester, could be more. So the idea of a course fair was brought up. And we've talked at the office level about this. I'll be meeting with leadership this week to put together a course fair that our parents could attend during one of our progress days, which is tentatively planned for January 9th, where parents can come in, meet with one or more representatives from each department, and just learn about the elective courses they offer or the offerings they have. And then a student course fair, which would be tentatively planned for the week of January 16th. So all students could go meet with our staff and say, well, what do you offer in our ag department? What do you offer in our industrial tech department? What do you offer for electives in our English department? Because I like English. What other courses could I take? And now, instead of reading just a small paragraph about what that course is, they get to visit with the teacher that would be teaching it for the trimester and learn, hey, is this something I want to sign up for, or is this not something I want to sign up for, prior to the registration process. We plan on having registration completed by January 30th, so that we have sections and numbers that we're looking at the beginning of February, which helps us for planning moving forward into next school year. And then lastly, under school and community partnerships, I want to talk a little bit about our Thanksgiving and Christmas project again this year. We did this last year, but we've supplied families meals for Thanksgiving. I want to thank Chartwells for creating oven-ready meals. We supplied this with the families. All they need to do is put it in the oven and cook it. And then we're also supplying 5 families and their children gifts for Christmas this year. Brittany Schmidt is the one that's kind of heading this program. I want to thank area businesses for the donations that they've given to help buy these gifts and these food. And I also want to thank GSL staff, pre-K through 12, because they are the ones that have taken these cards for these children to purchase these gifts and then donating to them before Christmas break. So I know that was a lot. I didn't intend it to be that much, but what questions do you have for me?
Matt, are you going to have families sign off on the registration when they're bringing the slip back? And like you said, the parents will be able to view it via campus, so they'll view it. But you mentioned that there's a document that would be going home so that the parents could kind of help fill it out, or the kids would fill it out and the parents would see it, in black and white, and then it's coming back to wrap. Are they signing it so that there's a signature of acknowledgement that they have truly looked at it or been part of creating it with their child?
So there's going to be some growing pains with this. Historically, that's the only way we've done it, is we've sent papers home. And as much as I would like to think that our kids don't do this, sometimes that signature is not necessarily the parent's signature when it comes back. So we're going to be doing a hybrid of that this year. Our 8th graders who will be filling out the 4-year plan, they will have a paper version that they need to fill out and bring back. But our 9th, 10th, and 11th graders will not. It'll just be the Google form that was sent home, and then we're going to verify that it was sent to the correct email through our RAP advisors. And with anything, when you try it with the first year of implementation, we'll see how it goes, and we'll have to adjust for next year.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foss.
A quick question,
Oh,
another quick question about the ski trip. Do we know how many subs we can anticipate? I mean, I know that you mentioned that there would maybe be 500 or so kids going. What are we thinking substitute-wise for the amount of students that are back, and of course covering the various departments and things like that?
We won't have any subs that day. So at our high school level, we have enough staff that are going and enough staff that have stayed back that their day will be uninterrupted. So when grades 7, 8, 9 go, grades 10, 11, and 12 will run a regularly scheduled day. When grades 7, 8, 9 go, we have talked with our junior high teachers and split them. So we have partner teachers, we have 2 social, 2 English, 2 science, etc. One will be going, one will be staying back. And it just works number-wise that we're able to get away with that at the 7-9 level because there's only about 60 kids that are not going to attend. They'll stay back, and we're going to be running as regularly scheduled day as we can, where they'll cycle through the partner teacher. But right now, we don't have any intentions on getting substitute teachers.
Okay. as we find out the number of students that are not attending, and then those days take place, can you also track and report back to us what attendance looks like on those given days? Because, as you stated, the expectation is if you're not going on this trip because of other activities that have prevented you from going on it or other choices that the students have made, the expectation is that they are here at school a regularly scheduled day, regularly scheduled learning. But I just would like to kind of be able to see attendance-wise, just to make sure that students aren't either excused or unexcused in not coming.
I'll break it down. By the time we have our January meeting, we'll have gone, I think. So I can break it down. I'll break it down by junior high, and then I'll break it down by senior high, which isn't necessarily how we're going on the trip because it's 7th through 9th and 10th through 12th.
Yeah.
But it'll be easier for me to put that information for you guys, junior high versus senior high. I can certainly do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, Superintendent Sanju.
Thank you. I know earlier we talked a little bit about progress days in the 7th through 12th grade, and that is actually happening tonight. And so our staff is having those progress days happen and reaching out to different parents in lieu of the parent-teacher conference. So that's kind of the intent of that. Just a couple other things. Our GSL food drive, we ended up collecting over 2,300 pounds of food for the local food shelf here in Glencoe. So we want to say thank you to all those people that donated for that. I also want to say thank you to the families for their flexibility on our half day that was on the 23rd of November. It worked out really well in terms of having our kids here for a modified schedule, and then the second half of the day was the end of the try for our staff to get their grades finished. The next one will be on March 3rd, which will be the end of try 2. So thank you for your flexibility with that. And then finally, Jason mentioned a little bit earlier about weather. Just another friendly reminder to our families that we will be given a phone call if and when there's ever a delay or any type of closure. We send that out to families not only by email but also by phone call. Typically how we run our school messenger is if there is any type of emergency, quote unquote, that's when you use the phone call system. Whereas the email system is kind of the updates that I try to run out and send out once or twice a week. And so if there's any type of that emergency, we will be making those phone calls. If you don't get a phone call for whatever reason, it's on the 4 major news networks, it's on a couple of the radio stations, it's on our website, it's on our school closing line. And so there is obviously, and the other thing is I've always wanted to try this experiment, but if I just called one student to send it out and see what they do in terms of their networking, I probably could be able to do that as well. But hopefully we can have school that are scheduled. The first 2 days that if we have a closure, those are digital different days. On the 3rd day, if there's a 3rd day, we would be making that up at the end of the school year. Thank you.
At this time, do we have any committee reports?
Clark and I had a finance meeting, and we just kind of looked at some preliminary numbers and some preliminary budget conversations leading into 2023 and the upcoming next school year already as well, not only calendar year, but school year as well. Anything else, Clark?
Okay, at this time, let's approve the consent agenda. Please note the addendum to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Motion by Donna, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alicia. To approve the consent agenda, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. No old business at this time. We'll move on to new business. Item A, paraprofessional hours, just the action item. Principal Freitag and Butler request approving the following change in paraprofessional hours for 22-23 school year. Sarah Christensen from a 7.5 hour day down to a 7, minus 0.5. Abigail Litfin, excuse me, 27.75 hours per week up to 31.5. That's a positive of 3.75 hours per week. And Lupita Acevedo, 24 This is 24 hours per week. And then we're moving that up to 28.25 hours per week. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Clark. Do I have a second? Second by John. Any questions or discussion?
If you remember, Lupita was the one that we dropped her hours because of some schooling that she was going to. Now that schooling is over, and so we're moving that back up. And her position is our interpreter.
We have a motion by Clark, second by John, to approve the following changes of hours for paraprofessionals as requested. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item B, Southwest Minnesota State University College in the School Contract, action item. Superintendent Sanjay recommends approval of the CIS contract with Southwest Minnesota State University for 22-23 academic year. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion by Alicia, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Donna. To approve the CIS contract for Southwest Minnesota State University for the 22-23 academic year. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item C, first reading of policies, action item. Is a recommendation of the policy committee to bring the following policies for adoption at the next school board meeting. 210, conflict of interest, school board. 304, superintendent contract duties and evaluation. 410, family and medical leave policy. 416, drug and alcohol testing. 417, chemical use and abuse. 418, drug-free workplace, drug-free school. 515, protection and privacy of people records. 521, student disability non-discrimination. 524, internet acceptable use and safety policy. And 531, the Pledge of Allegiance. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Clark, do I have a second? Second by John. To bring back the policies listed above for adoption for the next school board meeting. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item D, second reading of policies, action item. The following policies received their first reading at the November 14th school board meeting. Is the recommendation of Policy Committee Directors Lemke and Luckhart and the Superintendent of Schools to adopt these policies. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Jamie, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alicia, to adopt the policies listed above. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item E, resolution to accept donations, action item. It is the recommendation of Superintendent Sanjay to adopt the resolution to accept donations. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion by Alicia, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Clark. To accept, to adopt the resolution to accept donations. Any comments or questions?
Great list.
Yeah.
Yep, very nice list from our communities. So a motion by Alicia, second by Clark, to adopt the resolution to accept donations. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item F. At this time, we will ask for a recess for the, and we'll wait till 6 o'clock to have our Truth and Taxation meeting. Do I have a motion? Motion by John, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alicia. To recess at 5:45 p.m. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 to move around so you can see a little bit so I'm not standing in your way. All right, tonight is our official truth and taxation hearing that we're required by law to have. We have to start it at 6 o'clock or 6:01. That's also that goes on the property tax notice that goes out to taxpayers. So if they want to attend their truth and taxation for whether it's the city, the township, the county, or the schools, they have that opportunity to do that. So what we're talking about tonight is for taxes payable in 2023. We have to talk about some budget information and the impact of the levy. So those are the things that we're going to cover. I welcome any questions or jot them down, and then you can ask them at the end too. So what we're going to talk about tonight, it gets a little confusing when it comes to school taxes, school levy, because it's not for taxes payable, and it's for taxes payable in 23, but it's not for this year's budget or the budget in 23. Because schools run on a fiscal year, it works a little different. So we're approving, on the levy sheets it says 2022 payable 2023. So that means the school board approves the levy in 2023. It's for taxes payable to the property owners in calendar year 2023, but it's revenue for the schools in what we call FY24 or 23-24 school year. So a little different than the cities and counties and townships. They're approving their levies right now, but it's for their calendar year budget of 2023. So we work a little bit different. So we're not really going to talk about our budget that is reflective of this revenue stream for us. So the first thing I like to do is tell people, if they call, take a look at your property tax statement. Pull it out, learn it, understand it, so you know what's in there, so you know what kind of questions you need to ask and who you need to ask them to. So in the first part of the property tax statement, you're going to see your values, your classifications of your property. If you get an ag credit, you're going to see an ag credit column show up there. You're going to see your taxing entities, county, and then if you have a city or township, the school districts, and then any special assessments. So what we're focusing on is the school portion only. I can't address what's happening at the county. I can't address what's happening at your city or township level. So you have to call those people for that. And that's where you also found the information about when their truth and taxation meetings were held. Now, if you were a school district that had any type of election, say if it was a bond or a referendum, that would also be noted on here, because that would not be reflected on this tax statement that you got. So it's the timing of the tax statement coming out versus when the election was held. It wouldn't be on here. So if you had a successful election, these numbers would change on the school portion. On the school portion, there's always two lines. One is called voter approved and one is called other. And those are the things that we're going to go over tonight, the difference in what is in each of those categories. And then also on your tax statement, it's showing you your two different calendar years so you can compare. I apologize, this one just smeared when it got pulled into the PowerPoint. And then compares your 2 years so you can see your proposed estimate of a change in taxes. So the first line that shows up on that tax statement is called voter approved levies. And there's two different types of voter approved levies that we take to our voters. The first one is the operating levy referendum. And that just got really big. There we go. So that is when a school board decides to go back to the voters to ask for additional funding. We call it an operating levy to get so many more dollars per pupil unit. The market that is taxed on your referendum market values, which means it excludes any ag land and any seasonal properties. So for anybody that owns farmland, you're only taxed on that house, garage, and 1 acre. Farmland is excluded, as well as if you have a cabin property. Say you have a cabin property in another school district, that would be excluded if that district has an operating levy. The second voter approved levy would be your debt service levy. That's when the school board has decided to go to the voters to ask them, can we build a new a school, a major construction project, something that the voters would have to approve on. And that is based on the net tax capacity. So it's a different taxing numbers that they pulled together, which we'll go through. And that means it's taxed on all land. So farmland, every commercial property, every residential property. It's taxed on every piece of property. The ag land, though, is also eligible for the ag land credit. Both of these, the voters determine the amounts. You know, the board determines the amounts, but the voters are actually approving what those amounts are. But the amounts are determined by local authority. So the other line that shows up on your tax statements is called other local levies. Now these levies, the school board doesn't determine those dollar amounts, the voters don't determine those dollar amounts. These are all based on formulas that are set by the state legislators. So the things that come into other local levies are these categories right here. Your operating capital, your reemployment, otherwise known as unemployment, safe schools, career and technical, building leases, community service, and abatement bonds, which we do have an abatement bond that we use for our parking lot. That was not voter approved, that was school board approved, so it shows up in the other categories. All of those right there are spread on net tax capacity, meaning they're taxed, all land is taxed on that. The other category that's in other is long-term facilities maintenance revenue, and that is spread on a different taxing category that is called modified net tax capacity. So farmland, in this case, has some tax on it, but it's not taxed at 100%. They get, we currently have a 70% reduction in ag land tax on that. So they're only paying 30% on that farmland for the long-term facilities maintenance.
Question.
Yes?
What's the difference between the operating capital category and general operating funds?
Okay, so operating capital is things that we can only use for like major purchases. We cannot pay salaries out of operating capital, with the exception of you can pay some technology salaries out of that. Otherwise, all salaries have to come out of regular general fund. Operating capital used to be a fund in itself, and some schools still track that. It used to be called Fund 5. If you remember years back, we had Fund 1, Fund 2, and I'll get to that. Fund 3 was transportation, Fund 5 was operating capital, and you used to have to track those separately. They merged those probably in the late 90s. Everything flows through Fund 1. But you could choose to still track them a little different. This district had put them all together. So other things, operating capital, you can purchase your school vehicles out of that if you have school vans that you purchase, curriculum purchases, major equipment purchases. Say if we're buying a new piece of grounds equipment, a new lawnmower, those type of things that can come out of there. Technology purchases come out of there. So a number of different things, but also limited to what you can pay out of operating capital. There's some exceptions. You can buy chairs, tables, classroom furniture, cafeteria tables, because believe it or not, cafeteria tables cannot be paid for out of food service fund, because it's not food service, it's cafeteria. So there's a lot of different exceptions that you have to know. So as you're all well aware, and I'm not going to spend too much time talking about market values, I think we all know what's been happening in the market, even though we might start to see a slowdown right now. So when the government or Department of Ed and the legislators put together this data, they don't know what the 22 values are at the time that the levy is all pulled. That comes from the Minnesota Department of Revenue, but not till like early fall. These calculations are all done, the input happens before that. So when you get your tax levy, this is based on the 21 values. When you get your property taxes statement, which will come April kind of time frame, that will be actually based on your 22 property values. So there is sometimes a little bit of change. We don't usually see a lot in the change of the reflection of the taxes based on that change. But you can see right here in the graph here, about a 3.2% increase from 2020 to 2021. Now this is total valuation of the school district of all the properties. This is the referendum market values. an increase of about 5% or 5.3.5%. This is taking out all the ag land and any seasonal properties that you have. Then we have the net tax capacity values, and these are all different values that are used in different parts of the levy to determine what your levy authority is. The net tax capacity is taking the full market values times your class rates. The class rates, again, are set by the legislators, so you know if you fall into homesteaded, non-homesteaded, commercial, ag land. There's a bunch of different class rates that are established by the legislators. The adjusted net tax capacity, this is taking the net tax capacity amounts and dividing it by the sales ratio. And the sales ratio for 2021 was 94.6%.
Is that
Little,
statewide? Is that
nope,
statewide,
that's
or is it
countywide. That's countywide. So it was down a little bit from the previous year, and what the sales ratio is, they're looking at what are your assessors valuing your property at versus what it's selling for. And then this is the ag modified. And this is what's used to calculate the LTFM. So all categories are up a little bit based on those full market value prices. Some not quite as large as others. I'm not real sure what farmland has been doing compared to residential lately. I think we all know residential has been going up a little bit. Mine personally went up 10%, so I don't know where you guys fall in that. They do, you know, as I visited with a few different people, it really plays a factor if you've had a house that sells next door to you or 2 doors from you. If that's selling really high, all of a sudden your property value increases as well. Any questions on property values need to be addressed to your county assessor. They're the ones that can help you with that. If all of a sudden, geez, I didn't do anything to my property, and you know you forgot, well, I put in new windows, or yep, I added a sunroom, or I did a new basement or something. A lot of that is based off of permits. They pull permits to see who's applied for a permit and done work. Regular maintenance usually isn't that, included in that, but any type of big building improvement that you do, they will take a look at that to adjust your market values. So I wanted to give you an example of the complicated formulas that are used. The levy document this year was 39 pages. I have this as well as the tax information I'm sharing posted on the GSL website under administrative. I'll show you that later. So if you want to share that with anybody, or if you want to read this levy document, you can find it there. You can also find it on the Department of Education. You can also find any district in the state levy information. If you want to go look and say, oh, what's Waconia's market value? What's Waconia's formulas? You can check any of that out for any district in the state. But an example of the long-term facility maintenance, this is one category that they call equalized. Gets a little confusing because when you hear the word equalized, you would think it should be even equal between state and local levy. That's not necessarily the case. They like to equalize it from district to district. So they start out, and here's where it also gets confusing because they're using future years and past years, all right? So they're looking at an estimate of what our 23-24 pupil units are, right? So this is money for the 23-24 school year, so they want to see what's your estimates of pupil units for that year. That's what's going to drive this revenue. Now, 1,500 is not our seat count. This is adjusted pupil units, meaning they're taking our pupils and they're adjusting it for their weighted count, what each pupil is worth. So our high school kids are worth a little more. So that always increases this number a little bit. They throw in the building age factor, which doesn't really play a big part in this formula allowance, but it is part of the calculation. So they're taking our revenue, we get $380 per pupil units, times the 1,500, $570,000 in LTFM revenue, right? Pretty simple calculation. But now they want to equalize it to figure out how much the state's going to pay of that money and how much local property taxers, payers are going to pay for that money. So now they're looking at our 2021 the ag modified adjusted net tax capacity, because your ag land is reduced off of this number, so that's why they're using the ag modified. That's the only time the ag modified adjusted net tax capacity comes into place in the formulas. So you got that 14 million right there. And then they pull out the 2021 actual adjusted pupil units. So we're going from 1 year up to 1 year back, and that was at 1,657. So to figure out what your adjusted net tax capacity per pupil unit is, you're taking the ag modified amount, the 14 billion, divided by the 2021, 1,657. So you come up with an amount per adjusted pupil unit of 8,833. Then they take the statewide. What's the statewide average of adjusted net tax capacity for adjusted pupil unit? And that amount is 10,000. So you can see we're below that amount. So they're trying to get you up a little higher. So that comes to a levy ratio where they're taking the, well, I'm sorry, I should have backed up. It's equalized at 123%. So the amount would be 12,808. So then you're taking our GSL number of the 8,833 for adjusted net tax capacity per adjusted pupil unit and dividing it by that equalized factor, and that's what's calculating the levy and the state aid ratio. So you can see in this category the levy is 0.68% and the state aid is 0.31. And then you do the calculations for that. So this is just one sample of how the levy calculations and formulas are driven that you have to read through and understand your numbers that are going into that. They do the same type of calculation with like your operating capital, only that's using the adjusted net tax capacity and not the ag modified. So a little confusing, but I think once you kind of walk it through, you can see the steps of how they come up to the revenue and then how much is levy and how much is state aid. And this is just a little bit of information on the ag credit. So that ag credit was appropriated back in 2019 by the legislators, and it increased every year up until now we get to 2023, so it's at 70% that the ag land owners get back that they're not taxed on. We in turn get that in state aid. It comes through our IDEAS payments monthly.
Michelle, is that that credit, is that dependent on if we have a budget? I mean, at some time there were talk if we had a budget surplus and if we didn't have a budget surplus. Is that dependent or is this an absolute?
This right now, because it was legislation that was enacted before, it's in the appropriations bill. So right now, unless they change that, go back and change that statute, this is in law right now. Anything is always up for grabs when it comes to the legislators, but right now they'd have to, if they say we're not going to do this anymore, they'd have to pull that out. I think there'd be a lot of opposition against that. So all the taxing numbers, the property numbers, that's the basis, that's the first step of the levy calculations. The second step, as you know, is student enrollment. Student enrollment drives our revenue. Some of the numbers are based on resident, which is runs our referendum numbers, and the other numbers are based on your actual seat count students. So this is just the graph that's showing where we're at, where we ended up last year with our resident students. You can see the drop in there that we've had each year. So this last year from 21 to 22, we've dropped 75 students. The year before it was almost 50 students, and the year before that was 55. So when we talk drop in enrollment, and I've mentioned this before, we're also losing resident students. So they're just not here. So I think it helps understand a little bit when we talk about loss of enrollment. A lot of times we always compare that to our open enrollment kids, which is still high, but knowing our residents aren't there, that kind of justifies a little bit where some of our enrollment is. It doesn't help ease the pain a little bit because we see, you know, those referendum dollars drop. But that's Yeah, that's a look at those residents. The other one then is your average, adjusted average daily membership. So what I have in black is the numbers that we look at every December at this time when we're looking at truth and taxation. And then the numbers that are in purple are the final numbers from that previous year that I go and drop in, just so you can kind of see where we were at in December working on levy and truth and taxation compared to where we were when the year ends. The last few years enrollment has, as you know, has been difficult to track and to follow. We were doing pretty good those previous years. Last year we missed the mark on where we ended compared in December. Now that doesn't mean I didn't adjust the budget here, because as you know we adjust the budget closer to spring. It's just a snapshot comparing December counts to the end of the year counts. So we are definitely dropping in our enrollment. So now we'll go through some of the changes. It gets a little easier to explain some of the changes when our total levy is going down a little bit. There's not quite as much that we have to explain about why we have such big increases. So the first one is the our operating referendum. It's based off of the referendum market values, which again is no ag land is taxed. This has all been voter approved. The change from previous year to this next year, or this current year to the next year, is a drop of $60,000, pretty much all related to enrollment. There is an increase in our student per pupil amount because of our wording that when we passed the referendum, we included the inflationary factor. So for FY24, that amount goes to $533.28 per pupil unit.
I have a question on the previous slide. We talked about permanent residents, or whatever the terminology was. Residents. Is the summer help, Green Giant, and then Mexican help, is that what's the problem? Keeps moving around?
You know, when I first came, we had, every November, they'd say, okay, the PPAC closed, or, you know, Green Giant, Seneca shut down, and we knew right away we'd have a big number of students that left. That has decreased a little bit, especially the last few years. Now this year we had a few more that were migrant than left. Tricia, what would you guess on migrant that left now in November?
I think it's 18.
18. So it used to be a good 40, 45. Throughout COVID, we saw a lot more that just, usually male, just, you know, like the male of the family came up to work and didn't travel with the whole family because of COVID. That means the kids didn't come up. So we've noticed a big drop in kids in our summer migrant program as well because of that, which is all federally funded, but not near the number of migrant kids.
You're going to get into it later. Is there additional state aid for the districts that have more migrants that speak Spanish? Is there...
We get a little bit of additional funding in what's called English learners. Yep. Not a lot, but we get a little bit. So then we're going to get into the other local levies a little bit here. Again, these are the categories. I'm not going to read them all for you again. This was a total decrease of $28,000 in those other local categories. Any questions on any of those and what they're used for? I think you're kind of all familiar. We talk about these all quite a bit. Nothing new or outstanding there. On the building lease levy, our early childhood building, this will be the last year that will be on our levy documents. That has been now 10 years, so that one will be paid off. Next year's payment will be the last. So this is the last year of that levy on that piece. Rich?
Does a school resource officer come out of one of these categories?
School resource officers coming out of Safe Schools levy. We also use the Safe Schools levy for cameras, security cameras. Prior to the resource officer, if we'd have to hire any additional officers, usually that pertained to like our football games, sometimes a school dance, which they haven't had too many of those type of things. School radios, our two-way radios, repairing the school cameras, those we rely a lot on those school cameras when it comes to safety and security of our students and staff.
Michelle, we had the Transportation 4.0 present last meeting to us, and they were talking about additional cameras and stuff on their buses. That is their purchases for their vehicles, is that correct? We're
Yes.
not paying for cameras on buses or any of that type of information that they shared at the last presentation at the last board meeting, right?
Right. So that new, the new information they provided was a grant that they had applied for as 4.0. The district did not apply for that. Prior to this, we had purchased a couple cameras for our activity buses that we had put on there, or not the activity, I'm sorry, the activities we put the Wi-Fi on. We had a couple of our routes that we had put buses or cameras on those buses in the past, but not all of them. So it'd be nice to get them on all of them. Here's the other part of that other category. These are all the community service, community ed programs that fall under community service. So we have regular community ed, school readiness, our early childhood family education, our non-public education, our preschool screening, and our school age care, our PAC program. We get a little bit of funding for that to assist with any additional staffing that we need for that based on an IEP. The population for our early childhood was down a little bit. It went down, or went from 579 to 563. The one change in the ECFE funding, and this happened a couple sessions ago, maybe 3 or 4 now. Before that, the legislators were not making any hardly adjustments to the ECFE category funding. And now they changed that, so when the state aid formula allowance increase, that is linked to the ECFE. So any increase that we see in the state aid formula, the ECFE gets that same increase. So that has helped these programs. So we'll kind of wait and see what happens next year. And the ECFE, that has a whole component like I showed you on the long-term facilities maintenance. If you're interested in that, I can share that as well, but it's another long component. So one of the voter approved categories, of course, was our building project. We first bonded for that in 2015. That will expire in FY45. I won't be here in FY45, so somebody else can talk about that at that time. But small increase in that levy authority, and that's all just based off of the bond schedule. The school board doesn't determine that levy authority. The state doesn't determine that. That was all approved by the state, by the Department of Education when the bond was passed, and we submitted all those documents to the state. So that's all based off a bond schedule. We do not determine that. Every year, our financial advisors, Ellers, does take a look at that. And it won't be, I don't think, too many years, and there might be some bonding refunding available for that. We work closely with Ellers on that piece of that. Usually you see that after about 8-9 years or so of your original bonds. So we'll keep watching what happens with that. The other debt piece, what I talked about, is the non-voter approved. This is something the school board had authority to do. And at the time, it was our best solution to take care of our parking lots. And so we did that in 2019. That was a 10-year abatement bond. And that had a small decrease in that one. So here is just kind of the history of what the levies have been. I dropped off some of the former years, so this is showing back to 2018. So you can see we've been pretty steady the last few years. And this year a small decrease of $16,871.06, or a 0.38% decrease. Now this isn't saying you as a property owner might see a decrease, because it's based on your property values. If your property values have increased, you might see an increase in your taxes. The school is not asking for any more money, so it's just spread differently based on your property values. So now we're just going to jump into some budget information. I just wanted to review this a little bit. Schools are divided into many different funds: general fund, food service fund, community service fund, debt service fund, building construction fund, if you have a project, which we don't anymore. We have our trust fund that holds our scholarships, an internal service fund, which right now we're not utilizing, and then all our student activity funds. This is a snapshot of the revenues and expenditures you report. You maybe noticed, if you paid attention to your tax statement when it came this year, there was an additional supplemental budget that came. This was a new law passed by legislators this past year that had to be included with the tax statement notice. Apparently somebody, doing the tax bill said there wasn't enough budgeting information going out to property owners, so this was a new requirement. So it includes your information from your county, your city and township, and then your school districts. The one exception to this, if any of you own land that's in another school district, they said if your audit isn't completed, it wasn't a problem for the cities and counties because they go on a calendar year, so they were easy to pull in their numbers and their proposed budget numbers. But for school districts, we run on a fiscal year, so a lot of schools weren't close to even having their audit done. So they didn't include numbers, and they were allowed to put a statement in here that said our financial data is not available at this time. Our information is on there because we had all our audit information had it completed. This is also the information that got published in the newspaper for the required posting of the budget information. But it was included with your truth and taxation statements. So this is just showing, like on that supplemental information, the last year's actual numbers, the fund balance, and then the original preliminary budget for FY23. This just pulls it out into the pie graph. It's always easier kind of to see it visually in a pie graph where you can see most of our money is sitting in general fund. That's where we always focus on. Our other funds are pretty limited in what we can and can't do. So this is the revenue, and there's the expenditures. Again, most of it all sitting in that general fund. 83% about is the amount that falls into the general fund. So in summary, again, I just laid this out a little bigger for you. What is on your agenda for approval is to approve the levy at $4,475,886.10, which is a decrease of 0.38%. There are a couple handouts available on the Department of Education and the Legislators Department. A couple great guides that talk about financing, education financing, and also a guide for legislators. So you're able to access them if you want to study a little bit more about financing in school districts. Questions? I went through all that kind of fast. It's a lot of data. It's a lot of numbers. The fastest way to clear a room, you can tell, is saying we're going to talk about truth and taxation, and whoop, they're gone. So thank you, Randall, for coming. Thank you for your questions, and board. So any questions? And it's kind of your time. It doesn't have to be just on these numbers. If you have something else that's on your mind that you would like questioned or answered. Nope. So if you're interested, if you go to the GSL website at all, and you go to the tab that says District, Administrative Departments, then District Office, you will find all the information that I post out there regarding this material is out there. The full levy sheets are out there. The budget's out there. We have a budget book that we post out there. A lot of information, a lot of data. So if you ever get questioned by somebody in the public and they said, well, where can I find this? You can certainly direct them to that or have them give me a call, of course. But I try to put as much information out there as I can to help people that want to learn a little bit more about the district and the finances. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. I think every year we listen to you, we get a little smarter when it comes to this.
And then it kind of fades because you guys, it's not your everyday life like it is mine, but.
No, but you explain it very well, so
thank you.
It helps.
Hopefully it helps understand a little bit.
You ready, Mike? At this time, I'll ask for a motion to reconvene.
So moved.
Moved by John, motion by John, do I have a second? I think I got Alicia first. And we were reconvening at 6:36 p.m. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Item G, certification of the levy action item. The school district held the annual truth and taxation hearing at 6 p.m. The final levy needs to be certified to the home county auditor no later than December 28th, 2022. The full levy amount is $4,475,886.10. Information was presented at the Truth and Taxation hearing. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Clark. Do I have a second? Second by John. To set the final 2022 levy payable for 2023 at $4,475,886.10. Any questions or comments?
I didn't mention, but I also gave you that summary sheet, that kind of lays each of the categories out a little bit. So if you have any questions about that,
Okay. All right, we have a motion by Clark, second by John, to set the final 2022 levy payable for 2023. Do I have a motion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Item H, miscellaneous. We have none at this time. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Motion by Alicia, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jamie. To adjourn at 6:39 p.m. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.